are being filmed, so anything that you say or write in the chat ends up on the recording. As well, for those of you who haven't been to a CSU meeting before, if you want to speak or get on the speakers list, just use the little raise hand icon. It's in the on the right hand side of your screen in the list of all the participants. On the there's a little drop down called More, and you can do that. And I will begin by reading the Indigenous Solidarity Statement. So we'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganyan-Gehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Jojage/Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. Right, so I will move on to a roll call. So if you are here, just unmute yourself for a sec and say present here, whatever you wish. So I'll go through the list. Jared, are you here? Not here. Diana, are you here? Not here. Harrison, I think I saw you there.
Here. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Danielle? Not here. Matthew? Kay?
I'm here.
Thank you. Chelsea? Not here. Howard?
Here.
Thank you. Jeremiah? Actually just told me he wasn't going to be here. Lauren?
Here.
Thank you. Zachary? Actually told me he can't be here. Aryeh? Not here. Sarah?
Here.
Thank you. Margot?
Hi.
Thank you. Shivani?
Hi.
Thank you. Amma? Amma, I think I saw you there. Well, I see you on the list. Yasmin? It's not here. Marlena? Not here. Chris K? Not here. Chris V?
I'm here.
Thank you. Matthew B?
Here.
Thank you. Roman? Not here. Sean?
Here.
Thank you. Paige?
Here.
Thank you. Anais?
Here.
Thank you. James?
Here.
Thank you. Desiree? Not here. Hirsch? Not here. And Natalia?
Here.
All right, thank you. So let me just do a quorum count. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we're fine.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. In case you didn't see, Amma is here, but his mic is not working.
Yeah, I see him there. I put him as present. Don't worry. Thanks. So I'll just go through the execs as well. Isaiah, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Malcolm?
Present.
Thank you. Sarah?
I'm here.
Thank you. Manuela?
I'm here.
Thank you. Daniel?
Here.
Thank you. Victoria?
Here as well.
Thank you. And Holly? Holly? I saw Holly there a second ago. Oh, there you are. Okay, and Eduardo has requested excusal. So as an executive, he does require an excusal or else faces a monetary penalty. He has an exam that's concurrent with this meeting. Margot?
I'd move to excuse him.
Thank you. Do we have a second? You can just yell it out, anyone.
Second.
Second.
Second by Harrison. Is there any opposition to excusing Eduardo? Perfect, so that is good. So that carries unanimously, and I will just go through, oh, sorry, now we're at point 3, which is the annual campaign presentation / selection, and Victoria will be doing the presentation, but I will do the screen share because her Wi-Fi isn't working super well. So Victoria, you have the floor. Let me just, if you want to say anything before I start sharing the screen, I'm just going to go and pull this up.
Not for now.
Okay.
But I have one question before we start.
Yeah, go ahead.
The minutes were submitted to be approved. Can I take them out now, or I have to take them out after because it's a later point, correct?
Well, because of the way that the SCM agenda is, it's not like a consent agenda, so the minutes are just there for approval. So at the end, if council wants, they can make a motion to approve the minutes. Does that make sense?
Okay, because I just wanted to take the external ones out because there was a few complications that I had to fix with it. I made a few mistakes, so I just wanted to remind, just put it out there so I don't forget after. So if anybody can remind me and take that out, that would be beautiful and appreciated.
That is no problem. I'm just trying to get this presentation going. Just give me 1 second.
All right, perfect.
Perfect.
Excuse the background noise. I'm outside to get some fresh air because presenting to a group of a lot of people is a little anxious and a little scary, but we're on Zoom, so we're gonna make it happen. And we're gonna start with the annual campaign. So if you can just press present, and I'll tell you, Caitlin, when to press this, when to change the slides, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's just present right next to the share button.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I'm pressing all the buttons. Present.
It's right next to share on the left side or right side.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. There's a bar in the way. There we go.
Beautiful. Perfect. So, hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about the annual campaign, which will be presented by me, Victoria Pesh, your CSU External and Mobilization Coordinator. So we're going to start off with the first slide. If you could just go to the next slide, Caitlin. So I brought you everybody here today because I wanted to talk about the annual campaign being Black Lives Matter. This is obviously a subject that is very touchy. It is something that emotions do run high and people do feel, sorry, I might not see me really well, but people do, it hits home hard. So I would just want to take a minute to remind everybody to be respectful when talking about the subject and to really listen to what your peers are saying to you when they speak. And with that being said, all your questions, just kind of write them down and save them to the end, and I will be more than willing to respond to them. So on to the next slide. So a little bit of a review of what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to do an introduction to the campaign and to what we're going to be talking about, some definitions that I think are important to review before we go over the presentation, some background information of why this movement is important here today, current situation, so what's going on now in the world, our role as the union, how we can play a part, and the next steps moving forward to ensure that we truly support this movement in the correct ways. So on to the next slide, a nice introduction. So as you guys know, we are the representative body, my apologies, of all undergrad students. With this being said, each year the CSU chooses a campaign for the year, and for this year, we wanted to pitch the idea of having a Black Lives Matter, movement as the annual campaign. So we're going to go to the next slide to give you a brief definition of just what BLM stands for, Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter is an international human rights movement organizing from within the African American community, which campaigns against violence and systemic racism towards Black people. On to the next slide, we're going to go over some other definitions that are very important to know moving forward. So one of them is white privilege, and it's something if you hear or talk about the BLM campaign, it's just, you can't miss it, you can't override it, and it's not something that people necessarily take great. So as a lot of white people get uncomfortable, and that's extremely normal. So there's different levels to the white privilege. The first thing you have to note is that it's at all levels, meaning it's in political systems, it's in our institutions, it's in individual lives. People are individually racist. So it's something that we need to acknowledge, and it's something that we need to always be aware of. With that being said, we have to acknowledge also the history and the fact that people have been enduring racism for many, many years. And when I say enduring it, that means people have, obviously Black people have obviously been living through it, but people that are white or other races have never spoken against it or haven't necessarily done their part to truly show the Black folks that their lives are equivalent to ours and they matter as much as we do. Lastly, acknowledging the benefits. So with that being said, it doesn't mean that you've never been through your own personal struggles. Sorry, Caitlin, next I'll tell you when to change slides. My apologies.
Yeah, sorry, that was my bad. Go ahead.
So sorry, it doesn't mean you haven't had your own personal struggles. It just means you've never had struggles based on the pigmentation of your skin, which is something we really need to focus and emphasize on when we're talking about racial discrimination. So on to the next slide. So this is something that I personally still am not really good at because it's so close in they're such close words that they almost sound like synonyms and they're really not interchangeable. So the word systemic is not the same thing as systematic. So systematic is an action that is done according to some system or rule or method, essentially saying it's a part of a system. You know, you go to school, you take your classes, you get your degree, and then you get your university degree, my apologies. As for systemic, is something that happens inside a system or affects part of the system, which is when you go to get your degree and you take a class, and let's say in that class that teacher discriminates against you, that's part of the systematic racism rather than being part of the system itself. So that's something I just wanted to distinguish real quick. And then on to the next slide, which is a few words that I think are really important. I found this on Instagram and I thought it was a really easy way to kind of explain equality, equity and justice, as well as inequality. So you guys can like obviously read them for yourself. So inequality is, sorry, I can't see my screen, but access to opportunities is obviously not equal. Some person has more access than others, and it's very self-explanatory in the images. Equity is how they both have the same opportunities to get to that specific level, but obviously when they get to that level, they don't have the same reach. Equality is obviously having the same capabilities, getting to the final goal, but it wasn't done in the same way, which is something we need to talk about too. And then justice is having truly that equity where everybody can find the middle ground. With that being said, we're going to talk about the background on racism around us. So you can go to the next slide. And I kind of broke this down on a Canadian front, then we went to Montreal, and then to Concordia. So to kind of look at ourselves internally and things that we have done or things that we have experienced in our own community that really do resonate with this movement. So I'm going to start off with Canada. So if you can just go to the next slide. I want to start off by saying, again, I am extremely nervous presenting. First of all, I am white, so I cannot give direct results into anything that we're doing, but I'm just trying to provide as much information. And the thing is too, I want to just quick disclaimer, as much as I know and I've researched into these topics, for the background, there's a lot of obviously details that are going to be missing and details that do affect the statements, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there first. So racism in Canada is present, and there was a report done in 2016 by the United Nations. It was a report on economic, social, and cultural rights, and it reported that anti-Black racism is in Canada systemic. So that's really important to note that it was literally declared in a report done by the Canadian government. So that's really important. With that being said, incarceration rates of African Canadians in federal prisons is at a rate of 3 times higher than the number of Blacks in the Canadian population. This rate is comparable to the USA. So that's something that like is really important because often people talk about the American stats and like, yes, we are not the States, but we are very close and we can't deny that. And we can't deny the fact that a lot of their practices have leaked over into our country. With that being said, in some parts of Canada, Black people make about 1/3 of all people killed by the police, despite only being 3% of the population. So that was in 2007. So if you thought the other one from 2004 was too far back, here's another stat from 2017 to really prove to you that like this is present and this is something that we're dealing with right now. So if you can go to the next slide, Caitlin, please. So yeah, so obviously it's present in Canada, but what about Montreal? Because we're from here and this is, you know, we need to bring it closer to home. So in 1987, Anthony Griffin was a Black teenager in Montreal that was shot in the back of the head. It was later on revealed that year that the SPVM was using photos of a young Black man as target for practice. So that's something that needs to be obviously noted and is obviously not okay. In 1990, Leslie Presley, a Black Jamaican, 26 years old, was killed by the SPVM at a club in a downtown bar. Okay, bear with me on this one because obviously this is really not easy to read. But 1991, Fitzgerald Forbes, a Black man of Jamaican descent, died cardio-respiration failure after being arrested in a park. The same year, we have Merciless Francois, an unarmed 24-year-old Haitian man, was shot by the police with an M16 machine gun, despite being unarmed and also not the person the police was looking for. All officers in this case were clear of all charges. 1993, Trevor Kelly, 43 years old, Jamaican man, was shot, again, back of the head, SPVM. In 2004, Rowan Wilson, 28-year-old man, Black man, migrated from Vincent and the Grenadines, sorry, the island, and died in NDG from an accidental violent death caused by an alcoholic intoxication, followed by an intervention involving 6 officers. So essentially he was drunk and people called and filed a complaint, and 6 officers came for 1 intoxicated man. If it was a white man, I can promise you it wouldn't have been dealt that way. But anyways, 2008, Coralie Register, a Black Montrealist, sped through a stoplight and then was tased 6 times by police officers and died 4 days after due to organ failure in the hospital. And last but not obviously least, 2014, we have Alan Mulgorey, 41-year-old Black homeless man, in the midst of a mental health crisis, was hit by a car by the STM police, by the Montreal police, my apologies, in 2014. And once hit by a car, he was then shot 4 times by officers. So those are just some Montreal examples that I thought I should mention. And then if we go to the next slide, let's talk about Concordia's history. So in 1968 and 1969, as a lot of you know, there was a huge riot, and it was referred to as a computer riot, or also known as a computer center incident. This is when students were concerned about a professor's display of clear bias in a grading system. And this is where it was really Black students versus white students. And the students submitted the same exact paper, with the only difference being the race of the student and the identification. And both the reports were graded differently. And if I remember correctly, one was graded with a B+ or an A, and the other one was with a C-, which I'm sorry, is unacceptable. Yeah, so on to the next slide, the current situation. If you watch the news, if you watch TV, if you're on any, sorry, next slide, Caitlin. Yeah, so if you're on the news, if you watch TV, if you're on any social media outlet, you're not gonna miss every single headline, every single company, every single person right now is doing something for BLM. They are doing their part to ensure that Black people know that they matter, and they are not being overlooked in our society, and they will not continue to be overlooked in our society, and they will have the same value as a white person. So as you see, it's not just a Montreal, it's not just a Canada thing. The BTS donated money, which is a group in Korea. You have Sesame Street getting involved. You have, you name them, and they are involved in this movement because this is literally human rights. We're gonna go on to the next slide, which shows you even more articles regarding the movement. But one that I really want to talk about is the Concordia Statement on Black Lives Matter. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, the link is below and I can send you the full letter. But essentially, Concordia students took it upon themselves to write a letter to the administration saying, this is not acceptable, we need to do better. And enough essentially is enough. The demands on there, honestly, are some very crucial demands that I think we should, as a union, be supporting and be working on solving with them. But that'll be a conversation we'll have later on, and we'll talk about the steps and how we can really solve this issue later on in the presentation and later on just in life, because we're not gonna have, as I said, the solutions here today. These conversations are really meant to be had with Black folks, Indigenous folks, and really the community of color. So we're gonna go on to the next slide. And this is just why we can't be silent. So after everything I told you, you still think, okay, well, these are just incidents. Here are some more reasons why, as a Concordia Union, we really cannot just keep our voices down. So, first of all, supporting students. Our voice is the one of the most powerful unions, one of the most powerful, given we have 35,000 students, which of, a lot of them happen to be of color. Sorry, I want to show a graph because I don't have the graph with me and I don't necessarily have the numbers to demonstrate it or support it. But you know, like as the union, we should be doing our work to support our students, given we have direct connections with them. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but the university themselves have made a statement and are working themselves to make the changes that need to be done in order to end the systemic racism. Furthermore, we need to be leading the way. So a lot of other unions and a lot of other people are trying their best to do their part to fight this fight, but this is something that the union needs to truly be the forefront of, because we are the ones with the students who are going to be the next generation. We are the ones who are going to be able to truly ensure that these implementations are carried out into the real world externally from the Concordia Student Union and externally from this university campus, my apologies. With that being said, lastly, changing our actions. So this is something regarding the fact that we need to change the way that students behave on our campus and change the way that we handle racism on our campus. We can't be silent anymore, and we can't allow our students to feel attacked or feel misplaced in our community. We're gonna go on to the next slide. So what part can the Concordia Student Union play in the Black Lives Matter movement? So we're gonna go to the next slide. And these are the three most important ways that we've identified, not only myself, but me, the campaigns department, the entire executive committee, and we started having a few town halls to start talking to the community of color and finding ways that we want to push and make this change. So the first one is BLM Conversations. And I cannot stress enough how important it is, if we want to support the Black community, how much we need them to be in our conversations. We don't realize how often they are left out of conversations and how often we don't have people of color at our table and the value that that could bring to our conversations. Their perception and their experience in life is completely different to a white person or a brown person or any other person, because again, the color of their skin makes an excessive difference. Next, internal changes. So that has to come in with our policies, and internally as an organization, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable to ensure that racism isn't let just happen, and to ensure that there's consequences to these actions. And when we say consequences, we don't necessarily mean expulsion or I don't know what the worst I don't know what the worst consequences could be, but it's more about consequences. How are we going to teach them to do better? How are we going to make sure that this doesn't happen again outside of our classroom? Because everything we do here at Concordia does spill out into the real world, and we need to set that precedent and set those standards. Finally, we truly need to reunite all, and that means uniting all faculties, uniting the administration and other universities to stand together and fight for literally human rights, basic human rights for people of color. With that being said, we're going to go to the next slide, which is the next step. So what's the next step as a union? What are we going to do, and how are we going to show that we're making a difference rather than just saying it? So the next steps requires every single student on campus to advocate for Black Lives Matter. That means your teachers, that means your classmates, that means people that you meet in the hallways, even if you don't really know them. We all need to be standing up and showing that we support BLM. The first step, first and foremost, is passing the motion that I'm gonna ask Sarah Loki to read to you guys. And then the second step is really to listen to the wants and needs of the Indigenous community, which would allow, to the Black, and Indigenous community, which will then allow us to take action. So if you can go to the next slide, and then I'll let Sarah just read the motion.
All right, so I'm going to read the motion. Whereas the CSU has historically supported protests that aim to better the lives of their peers and the overall community. Whereas the purpose of the annual campaign is to mobilize and inform students about a current issue that affects students or a subset of students and their larger communities. Whereas the CSU's mission is to serve students, defend their rights, and act as their highest representative body at Concordia. Whereas the CSU stands in solidarity with Black Lives Matter movements across North America. Whereas systemic racism remains prominent in Canada, and BIPOC members of our community face discrimination and disproportionate surveillance and disproportionate police violence. Whereas Bonnie Jean-Pierre was shot in the head trying to flee from police in Montreal. George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, Minnesota by a white police officer kneeling on his neck while he said, "I can't breathe." Breonna Taylor from the United States was shot in her own home by Louisville, Kentucky police conducting a search intended for another person. Tony McDade from the United States was fatally shot by a police officer in Tallahassee, Florida, and multiple other people have been killed by police in Canada recently. Whereas active anti-racism and active participation in the Black Lives Matter movement is essential to securing a safe future for all. Be it resolved that the CSU make the annual campaign one that is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. Be it further resolved that the budgetary impact is nil.
Thank you, Sarah. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, first of all, for listening. And as we move on to have this conversation, I just really emphasize and repeat one more time that this is a very, very heavy subject. This is affecting individuals on our campus, individuals in this room, well, the Zoom room, and individuals just in our everyday life. Sorry, that slide was supposed to be taken off, but I didn't. So yeah, so I'll open up the room for conversation. I want to just thank you again for listening.
Thank you. So first of all, do we have a second for the motion that Sarah read out?
Second.
Second by Daniel. All right, so the floor is open for questions or discussion. I see we have a speakers list of Isaiah, Amma, Harrison, and then Sean. Isaiah, you have the floor.
I can go now, Caitlin? Sorry?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So first off, before I speak, I just want to thank Victoria for her presentation. It's not an easy one to make, especially when you may yourself may not feel like you're afflicted by the issues that you're speaking on. So I just want to take the time to thank you for giving that presentation and standing in support with this movement. I also am going to urge, because there was a discussion like this had at external committee, so be very wary to counselors in a sense of when you draw comparisons or you reference any current event, because it is a sensitive topic. But with that out of the way, I can't speak about the importance of this campaign enough. But like, as the external mobilization coordinator from last year, one of the reasons why climate justice and sustainability was chosen was because there was mobilization. It's harder to create mobilization than it is to kind of like push it forward and continue it. Last year with the climate march and all the different actions taken, it was easier for us to kind of work in collaborations with a bunch of community organizations to kind of push the campaign forward. In a similar vein to this, it's a little bit more, I would argue, like the mobilization is even more present than the climate change marches, I would argue. And it's really sensitive topic where a lot of our student base is vulnerable. So I think it's our obligation. It would be a waste of opportunity and almost a disrespect to the students who are afflicted by these issues if we don't kind of join the movement and support them through these troubled times. But that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Amma?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, first I would like to thank Victoria for the presentation. I think that the short educational bit in differentiating systematic from systemic was well done. Like, that's a nuance I think that is not often emphasized. Also, like, I think we tend to forget that racism, more than anything else, is a human tragedy. And the fact that the CSU student organization gets involved actively in this with the whole momentum that the Black Lives Matter movement has in the world is very positive. It will definitely make the organization much more relevant in affecting the community and even the city. I'm looking forward to that this momentum really brings long-term improvements at both Concordia and the City of Montreal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Harrison.
Thank you. I also want to thank Vic for this great presentation. I think that you really highlighted the importance of this movement and also how it applies to all of us, all religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, and skin colors. And I think that that is the key to this campaign. So I'm very happy that you highlighted this. I think you did a great job presenting it, and I think it's great. So I look forward to hopefully passing this and a great campaign, a great annual campaign.
Thank you. Sean, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank Victoria for this great presentation, saying it home to us how important it is. I don't know the process of how we do this, but if I have a question, if we could like add in an amendment or.
Yeah, do you have, I was
just wondering, because we mentioned in the presentation the points standing also the Indigenous people. So do we want to just keep it to Black Lives Matters, but also because near to home in New Brunswick, the recent shootings and killings in, I guess, the First Nations, do you want to make a solidarity presentation for that, for the First Nation people of New Brunswick?
Victoria or any of the executive, do you want to answer?
Can you just like repeat the question? Because I think I understood, but like then you said something that kind of threw me off. So if you don't mind just repeating the question, and then I'll answer it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just wondering if do you want to put something about the First Nations, starting in solidarity with the First Nation people of New Brunswick due to the recent shootings of Tristan Moore and Ronnie Levi.
I'm more than amendable to adding it into the whereas. And I think if you want to, or if council is amendable to it as well, maybe in the be it resolves, also add stand with the Black Lives Matter movement and incorporate Indigenous rights movements as well as a way of doing that. Because the thing is that Black Lives Matter, we can't make Black Lives Matter until, especially in Canada, Indigenous lives matter. And that's like a huge thing that has been talked about. So I guess in my mind, I kind of put them together, but I'm more than willing to kind of make them as two separate points, though I would probably ask if anybody has any suggestions on how to do it, because I don't want to phrase it. I don't really know how to phrase that. So yeah, I would be more than willing to.
Sean, did you have any wording for it? We can always come back to you if you want to write something up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just write something up in the chat.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say essentially, like, thank you, Victoria, for really doing this presentation. It really was impactful and very well done. I appreciate you as an ally and for all your hard work. And number two, like, as a student union, it's our right to advocate for students at this point, and it is our duty to really be supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and as well standing in solidarity for the Indigenous people as well. This is something that we really can't turn a blind eye to. And it has been done time and time again. So I just wanted to really reiterate like the sincere importance for this as a Black student at Concordia, but also as a counselor, not a counselor, an executive for the student union. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you, Victoria, for this really well done presentation.
Thank you very much. Roman, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say that it's great that all this energy about fighting racism, and I think it's a great thing to do, you know, especially with the current events in the world. But I would like to clarify one thing. I don't agree, although I agree with like fighting racism and the whole energy. I don't agree with the vocabulary that is being used as, for example, I heard some people say that like all students and all teachers have to do, as if it is in the laws of Canada that we have to do something. Just, you know, to clarify that like we should be careful with the vocabulary, because at the end of the day, a democracy is all about having a choice. And even if there's a clear right and a clear wrong, we should still have the choice. Now that is a very
human rights is not a choice. I just want to clarify that, and I just want to make that a statement, because this is about human rights, basic human rights. So I don't know where you're coming in with saying this is an opinion, but I just want to reiterate that.
All right, yeah, if we could just maintain kind of a respectful dialogue, just a reminder that this is a really heavy topic for a lot of people, counselors, executives, all total. So just to try to keep it a little bit more respectful, Roman, thank you.
What do you mean? Yeah, I'm respectful. I'm just saying that, you know, we're all free human beings and we can choose what we want. And saying that all Concordia students should do something just because you think that is
the point of personal privilege.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes, Isaiah?
Yes. Please do not, this is not like a time for you to shed your perspective on the issue, because not all human beings have been free in this society. So choose your words very carefully, please.
I am choosing my words very carefully. I just want to say, we can, like, you guys talk like if we have to do something. We don't have to do nothing. It's free.
Honestly, point of order.
Yeah, like, Roman, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to cut you off there. I'm sorry, Roman. Also, just a reminder, everyone is on camera, and also this is like news outlets from Concordia and all that have access to the video. So if we could please keep our clothes on during the council session, that would be great. Thank you. Matthew, go ahead.
I just wanted to take the time to thank Victoria for giving such a comprehensive presentation to council, really highlighting the issues that face society today, and especially minority groups such as the African American community. And I also wanted to thank Victoria again for giving this presentation under circumstances where it can be very emotional and it can be very heavy to give a presentation on that. And I hope that this council overwhelmingly passes this motion as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. James.
You're on mute, James.
James? Oh.
Oh, yeah. Hello. I just want to ask Victoria. Okay, so like I mean, listening to the going through the presentation, can you kind of just make it a bit shorter? What the actual like demands? So as far as I understand, the campaign is going to consist of having a few talks. You know, what they call the BLM engagement thing. So what would the campaign consist of, just to like put it down in like concisely?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
go
the
ahead.
problem,
And the second question is, why wasn't that included in the motion? Now we can just amend to have that included in the motion, but that's kind of a separate question.
so I'm going to get into that really quick, well, really simply. The only reason I didn't put, as I mentioned at the beginning, actions that we will be taking in order to solve this issue is because as a white person, I cannot make those calls. As a white person, we cannot tell people of color how, or not even people of color, Black people or Indigenous people, how to deal with the issue that they've been dealing with for many, many years. Oppression and systemic, my apologies, racism isn't something we're going to solve in one day. So for us, really our take or our number one initiative is talking to the BLM community, talking to the BIPOC community, involving them in those conversations and having them come up with solutions that they want us to implement. And as we come up with those solutions, my plan was to kind of either run it by external committee or run it by council, depending on how external committee feels on it. Because to be honest, like I don't have, like I said, I can't give you concrete actionable plans right now because I'm not the person who's going to make those calls. And this requires conversations and having, you know, those town halls and things like that to find out what the best protocol to not necessarily ending this overnight, as I said before, but fixing this issue. So I don't know if that answers your question particularly. But
I mean,
can I
just respond for a second?
It's someone who's on mute. James, did that answer your question?
I mean, only partially, but it kind of doesn't, like, I don't really.
Ask the second question. Maybe I can, like, what you didn't understand, and maybe I can elaborate and try to help you out on understanding it. But essentially,
Okay,
like,
right,
what I'm,
right.
yeah, sorry.
So essentially for now, we're going to do nothing until we have town halls, because
No. So essentially,
I think Isaiah was trying to answer, actually. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for
Isaiah,
it.
go ahead.
Okay, so just to add, James, like even similar to last year, right? We did not have concrete demands in the motion or whatnot. We went with climate justice and sustainability in the sense of like, in the sense of generally trying to push Concordia in a different vein. Like we didn't have concrete, like, oh, this is what we want. We want you to have your carbon emission. We kept it broad strokes. I think what Victoria is trying to advocate for in this issue, it's not up to us as council to decide what is the right approach to the movement. It's the key word is being in solidarity with the movement. So we're going to take the time to organize activities in which we can, if you look at the presentation and you look at the Google form, there's concrete demands out there that are being asked at Concordia. There's different work that.
So are we endorsing those demands, or are we endorsing something else? That's what I'm asking.
Well, basically, I shared the letter to kind of emphasize that we'll be endorsing those demands and working with those demands, but also going above and beyond those demands and finding other ways that we can hold the administration accountable and finding other ways that we can improve this movement and support this movement. But like I said, like it's not something that I can decide like tomorrow morning, like, oh, I'm going to have 400 protests throughout the year and every Sunday we're going to protest as a CSU. Like as a white person, I don't get to make those calls. For example, last week I wanted to attend the protest, not last week or the week before, I believe. And I tried to get the Concordia Student Union there, and I spent the entire week working hard with my campaigns team, and like Nicole put hours and hours in just to find out that unfortunately the event didn't go as planned. So it didn't go as planned. First of all, I'm going to make something clear because the BIPOC community did not support that particular protest for X, Y, and Z reasons. With that being said, that's why I'm trying to emphasize and trying to explain that it's not something that, like Isaiah said, tomorrow morning I'm going to have every single solution, we're going to implement this, but it's something that with conversations, with different things that that come up, I'm going to say, okay, council, do we approve of this? Do we approve of that? But the main goal is to stand aside the Black lives and the Black folks of our community. So that's the action that we'll be taking if you wanted like an actual concrete thing that we'll be doing. And that action is supporting the Black lives of our community.
And
I don't know if that helps you out.
just one more tidbit or caveat in the sense is we're already working on motions in terms of, like, if you saw on Monday, the City of Montreal, the commission released recommendation for Montreal, like the community around us, so that to recommend different areas in the city to help fight systemic discrimination. So this decision that you're making will allow at least us to dedicate a certain specific amount of resources campaign-wise to kind of advocate, to advertise. There's so many different things that can be done, regardless if somehow by, I guess, the act of malice don't approve this, or like this doesn't get done, we're still going to be fighting for the cause. It just won't be the annual campaign at that point.
Great, thank you. Nicole, go ahead.
Everyone hear me?
Yeah, just barely.
Okay, just one sec.
So, well,
Oh wait, I'm just waiting for Nicole to get closer to the mic. Are you good, Nicole?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the campaigns coordinator. My name's Nicole, and I just want to, I guess, provide some context / like a few comments based on the discussion that's currently been happening. So first of all, I'd like to kind of reiterate or second what Isaiah said earlier about how the annual, like why it's so important for this to be the annual campaign. As someone who's been working for the campaigns department of the CSU for 3 years, I can tell you that historically, the annual campaign has always been something for which there's been mobilization already happening. So like Isaiah said, we're like the CSU has been doing anti-racist work for years. We will continue to do anti-racist work regardless of whether or not it's the annual campaign. That being said, because there is so much energy currently around this movement and there are so many mobilizations happening, and there's so many things happening right here in Montreal around us that are making these mobilizations like possibly more relevant than ever. It really does send a message, I think.
This is common. Nicole always cuts out when she's at a great part.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, Nicole, did you just pause or did the mic cut out?
The mic cut out.
Oh no.
She was about to hit him with the facts, and then I'm like, darn it.
It happens in all my meetings with her, and it breaks my heart.
Okay, she's gone. Oh no, there you are. Nicole, can you hear us, or does your mic work? Okay, I'll come back to you. We had another external speaker, Francella.
Hi, everyone. Just speaking on behalf of our news director, Luca Caruso-Muero, whose microphone is not working. He asked a question in the chat. The motion mentions the budgetary impact is nil. Does that refer to a campaigning budget or a budget overall? What does that all mean?
So when we mention that, when we mention that, we're just saying it's not going to affect our actual budget. Like we have a budget for the annual campaign, so it's going to be that budget that's going to be used for. We kind of like planned our budget essentially regarding whatever the campaign was going to be. This is how much we're going to be expending. So it's not going to change the budget in that sense. It'll just be the money that we allocated for the campaign will be going to BLM. So essentially no actual impact in the sense of the money has already been put aside for a campaign. We're just saying that the campaign will be BLM.
Can I also give some context that might illuminate this a bit more?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so last year we passed a motion that we have to have basically it was kind of like a balanced budget motion, that if we're making a motion, right, and we're going to be using money for something and we have to change the budget, right, in order to, or like change a budget line in order to get that money from somewhere, we have to explicitly mention it. We can't just leave it up to the executive. But now, since we have a campaigns budget that has been approved, like we don't have to make any changes to the budget. That's what that means.
Thank you very much. That was a good explanation. Nicole, you're back. You have the floor. I can't hear you again. Is there any way you can leave and then rejoin the meeting? I can let you back in right after. I don't know if that would help. But for now, we can't hear you, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Here, I'll try to arrange this. For now, Amma, go ahead.
Yes, just to address the initial reservation some of my colleagues had regarding this campaign, I just want to make a short reminder that one of our bylaws states, bylaw 2.1, one of the objects of the CSU is to increase awareness, to educate, and to mobilize with a view to promote the quality of the environment and of life, both with regard to student population and the public in general. So going with this is basically just doing what we do. And it has been done in the past, and it's in our bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready?
I called Nicole so I can put her on speaker so that you guys can hear her, like, so that the Wi-Fi.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Nicole, through Isaiah.
With my Zoom, I'm getting no sound at all. Okay, so essentially the only other point I wanted to make was because Vic and Isaiah already talked about the town hall stuff and the context behind that. The only other point I wanted to make is regarding the solidarity with Indigenous people. So just some context, like, I guess as someone who's been involved in like anti-racist work around the Montreal area and in various areas of Canada overall, I definitely think that like this is an issue that extends, like, and I'm not saying anyone was saying this, but I definitely think this is an issue that extends beyond Wet'suwet'en and beyond like what's happened recently in New Brunswick. In Canada, statistically, Indigenous people are very heavily disproportionately discriminated against by the police. And it's really like in line with the history of colonialism, and they're similarly, I would say, impacted to the Black population. So they're very like they're much more likely to face basically police violence than like most other demographics other than the Black population. So I would definitely say that this motion, like, it would be really great if this motion included them. I would be very general about it, like personally, because like I said, it's a thing that affects all Indigenous people. It's not just about specific incidents. This is not a new thing, is basically what I'm saying. But I would also avoid saying things like Native Lives Matter, just because a lot of activists in both movements, so the Black Lives Matter movement and also Indigenous rights movements, have said that they don't really want to use that sort of phrasing because it kind of like a lot of people feel like it kind of piggybacks off the Black Lives Matter movement when their movement is like their own movement. So yeah, my recommendation is just to like avoid anything like that, but I definitely think that the motion should include them. So I guess make of that what you will. I really encourage you to adopt this campaign. I think it's super important.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I'm glad you could join us through alternative means. Margot, go ahead.
Oh, I don't think I had my hand up.
Oh, okay. Isaiah.
Oh, sorry, I got confused because Nicole, I guess I had put my hand up to address certain comments before, but I needed to use the point of privilege. But as I'm just going to echo what everyone says, it's like we can make or emphasize what Nicole just said about like making sure that they are included, but don't get into the nitty gritties, because that's where even though you may not try to, but you are most likely to offend somebody.
Thank you very much. Shivani.
Okay, I have no idea. Okay, there's an amendment in the chat, first of all. Second of all, just to address the whole we don't need to do nothing if we don't want to thing, leaving the option for students to not, first of all, I don't really know where the concern is. There's no vocabulary that students have to support it, so I don't really know what that's about. But also leaving the option for students to not support Black Lives Matter is not really an option the students should be taking. All we need to do is take a firm stance and protect our Black students and advocate for them. Democracy is about as much representing and protecting marginalized groups as it is about choice. And as CSU Council officers, when we run to represent all students, not just the ones who reflect our own struggles. You know, I'm not running just to represent independent students and South Indian students. I'm also running for all students, and that includes Black students as well. And there's an unproductive pattern of counselors using the term student representation and democracy when it suits motions that they want to do, and then falling back on freedom of speech or choice to absolve them of accountability and responsibility. There is a systemic racism issue in the CSU, and we have to realize that. And that being said, whoever the next person is can probably do that amendment in the chat. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Sarah, go ahead.
Just to echo what Shivani also said, we also need to look at ourselves, which is like the main important thing. And in the student union, I ran to represent minorities because obviously minorities are not really represented well at the CSU, which is another problem we need to look at, but that's besides the point. But in that sense, I think that besides these comments, like it's been said, we have to be very careful in the sense of like being sensitive with this topic, and also in terms of like Indigenous things as well. It's something that we have to keep in mind, like Nicole said, making sure that like not too specific, because this is a broader issue than that they've faced overrepresentation in terms of like the populations in jail as well. So it's something that they also face their own police brutality. So it's something that we also have to take into factor as well. But yeah, that's what I would have to say.
All right, thank you. James, go ahead. James?
Yes, hello?
Hi.
All right, great. So kind of just like a follow-up thing. So we kind of mentioned, and like this is, this is a concern that I have about having the entire campaign center around an external movement, and just please, I don't want anybody to like, misinterpret what I'm saying. This is honestly just from my own personal cynicism about looking at movements. Like for example, last year it was environmental justice. So we had, in demands, for example, independent of La Planète s'invite à l'université, right? So it wasn't we support La Planète, it was we support environmental justice. What would happen if, for example, in 2 months, the Black Lives Matter movement disappears into the Biden campaign, for example, because the US election is starting and the political realists decide that the best way for them to get their change is to work inside of a political campaign of an actual political candidate. What happens if there's an election called in Canada and the movement dissolves into either the NDP or the Liberal or even some Tories, and there's no like Black Lives Matter movement to take instructions from? Like that's, if it's a question of we're going to reevaluate it when we get there, I guess that's an answer to the conundrum. Like if it was something like anti-police brutality, right, where, some of the principles of that campaign were supporting BLM and supporting Indigenous people, as exemplified by the missing and murdered Indigenous women report. That would be, I think, I guess I will, so just if somebody like I know it's not something that people want to think about really, but this is just looking at how these movements tend to go just historically, when it gets to a month or 2 months, unless the government decides to start shooting at protesters, like actual bullets, sending in the army.
Can I call point of personal privilege? Like, I feel like this is all out of line and has no relevance.
Well, it's been 2 minutes, James. So
Okay.
I gotta.
Yeah, so is there
2 more seconds?
Yeah. So are there any kind of plans, contingencies, if, for example, in 2 months the movement dissolves?
I saw you. Do you have an answer?
All right. One, I think that's like, it doesn't, I think there's some confusion about what we mean when we're going to speak to the movement. The movement is not just the movement outside like the Black Lives Matter organization. When we say that we want to consult well, I'll say it this way, the Black community, we're talking about our Black community here at Concordia. So we're going to speak to the Black students. We're going to speak to the different community groups and come up with concrete actions that reflect our situation here at Concordia. We're not going to be the political puppets of anybody and go and just follow somebody drinking some type of Kool-Aid blindly. So that I'm confused to where this line of trend of what happens if we go external. We're not necessarily, when I say we're going external, we're going outside this council. We're going outside the CSU. We're going to go mobilize students and the community members afflicted so that we can see what solutions work for them and not for our own egos and our own agendas.
Okay, no. So you see, that's much more clear than like, because I mean, the confusion just comes from than what was said before. Like, and would anybody be opposed to kind of put, or at the very least, put the measures, for example, into the motion itself instead of just?
I'm against that idea because then it innately assumes that there's something wrong. Trust and belief.
Okay, let Isaiah finish, please.
Trust.
Isaiah, go ahead.
You need to trust, like in the sense of like the way this annual campaign is supposed to work is we're supposed to just pick a direction. As a council, we come together, we pick a direction, we pick a focus, and then we collaborate together to get that focus. If we sit here at the beginning of this direction and put all these limitations and all these different like contingencies, it's almost disrespectful to the movement itself. It shows that we don't trust in the movement. We don't trust in the direction. So instead of focusing on amendments to kind of limit it, think of amendments to kind of make sure that we're not missing any of them, such as the one to include the Indigenous communities, because Black lives and Indigenous lives go hand in hand.
Thank
you. Am I able to just, I'm not sure, I'm new at this, am I able to just say that I think we should start to talk about the amendment that I believe it was Sean that proposed and get to voting on this?
Shivani, I believe, is going to mention that since she's next on the speakers list and had mentioned it before. Go ahead, Shivani.
Hello, so it's in the chat. I don't really know if I should try and pronounce it because I'm sure I'll butcher it, but the whereas clause about Rodney Levi being shot by a member of RCMP on June 4th. This is a motion to add this amendment. Whereas Chantal Moore, shot by a member of RCMP on June 12th, be it resolved, the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement against police brutality and systemic racism. Be it further resolved that the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with the Indigenous peoples of Canada against police brutality and systemic racism.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second for the amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Shivani, do you want to motivate?
Kind of what was said already.
Can I amend an amendment?
Only after, when you're on the speakers list, is Shivani's motivation. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is important to incorporate Indigenous peoples in this because their fight it's called BIPOC, Indigenous and people of color for a reason, because both of those communities have a very distinct history that needs to be fixed and supported. But that being said, we shouldn't lump, the wording of this is so they're both separate because they're both equal on their own footing and they're both separate motions. They're both separate movements under the same umbrella of systemic racism, so they're separate in that regard, and that's kind of the only motivation I have. Yes, I think this should be friendly.
All right, thank you. Is there any opposition to this? James, did you have a quick amendment?
Yeah. Can I just a quick amendment to the amendment? I guess. Can I just wait till I bring up the chat? Just a second. So yeah, it says. Be it resolved that the annual campaign is one in solidarity with BLM against police brutality and systemic racism. Can I put Black Lives Matter movement and against police brutality and systemic racism with the Indigenous people of Canada?
Oh, it already says that.
Well, no, because it says I want, like, can we put an and between movement and against? Because it
I'm a little. I know the thing is about semantics and wording, but the Black Lives. Yeah. I think it's kind of.
I think that because I think that makes it clearer.
Sorry, point of personal privilege. I'm just specification for BLM, Black Lives Matter, it specifically targets police brutality, police violence against Black people. So it's included in the Black Lives Matter statement. So by saying Black Lives Matter, you're saying that you're specifically targeting police brutality and violence like from the police. So it's
But,
I understand.
But by putting by putting the "and" as well, right? We're also signifying that we will be, as Isaiah said, doing our own. Like we are going to be doing our own things that are independent.
So we're supporting the Black Lives Matter movement,
as well as giving them our moral support for their fights and their movements, especially when it comes to stuff like what's going on in Montreal. I think it's much more encompassing in what we actually mean when we're talking about things, and I think that words should have.
So just to clarify, James, you want it to read, "Be it resolved, the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and against police brutality and systemic racism"?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second for that amendment? Okay, if it doesn't receive a second, then it fails, so we'll go back to the main speakers list. Margot, go ahead.
I said second.
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry, Sean, I didn't hear you. Okay, so then
It's all right, it's my mic.
Oh, all good. Okay, so in that
Point
case.
of information.
Yes.
Which part exactly is he trying to amend? Because at the end, I see, "Be it resolved, the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with Indigenous people of Canada against police brutality and systemic racism."
So the "and" would be where it says one that is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and against police brutality and systemic racism.
I think it's better. I think it's better wording. Like, it might seem petty, but I mean not petty, but like kind of insignificant. But it just seems better that way.
So you want to take these two clauses and put them into one sentence instead of two separate, like, "be it resolved"?
No, the "and" is after Black Lives Matter movement. So instead of
Can we just write this down, please? That way we have something clear.
Can we, okay, I don't know if this is out of order. Should I be speaking? Can we just add another "be it resolved" to target that? So we just keep it as Black Lives Matter and Indigenous peoples, and then we add another one specifically for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I think that covers all grounds. Does it?
I didn't quite. It would need wording. Right now, we're just talking about adding the "and," so I don't want it to get too far off track on this one. So we can have a decision on whether to add the word "and" right after Black Lives Matter movement. So first of all, is there any opposition to adding this "and"?
Point of order?
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure what Shivani just said is what James is offering, because James is trying to separate Black Lives Matter and against police brutality and systemic racism. So it would be a third one. Black Lives Matter movement is about going against police brutality and systemic racism. So there's no point in putting that "and." We're just developing on Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, while I understand your argument for the point of order, it's only if something is going against like Robert's rules. So for example, like if somebody was trying to add a third amendment to an amendment or something.
It says object to procedure though.
Sorry?
It says object to procedure as well.
Yeah, procedure is like the rules that we use. Like it's not necessarily being against what's on the floor currently. I don't know if that helped an explanation. Sorry. But yeah, so right now there's a motion to amend the amendment to add an "and," and that's received a second. So we have to discuss that amendment currently. Amma, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I go against the amendment. Sorry to interrupt. Just one thing I would like to talk about. I think people have to learn more about Black Lives Matter in general. The statement that the movement would disappear through the Biden campaign or an NDP campaign is really uncalled for. Black Lives Matter has existed since 2013, since the murder of Trayvon Martin. So it is a decentralized movement. I think it is highly unlikely that it disappears in the next 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, given the global momentum that this movement has. I think that people have to rethink very carefully when they speak sometimes in this meeting. I think that it can be very problematic sometimes to utter things in ways that do sound quite disrespectful, in my opinion. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So I'm just going to take a vote on because I don't want to spend too much time on an amendment to an amendment because we'll end up being here all night. So is everyone okay with taking a vote on it? Okay, so currently the motion or the amendment on the table is to amend the amendment that Shivani had read out to add the word "and" after Black Lives Matter, and as well, there was a second "and" after the Indigenous peoples of Canada. Yeah, there we go. So there were two "ands" there. I just only wrote one in the chat. So is everyone okay with voting on that? Okay, so I'll go through the roll call list. Jared's not here, Diana's not here. Harrison, how do you vote?
No to the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you. Matthew K.
No to the amendment of the amendment.
Thank you. Chelsea?
No.
No, thank you. Howard?
No.
No. Jeremiah is not here. Lauren?
No.
No. Zachary is not here. Aryeh? Aryeh? Okay, we'll say not here. Sarah?
No.
No. Margot?
Nope.
No. Shivani?
No.
No. Amma?
No.
No. Yasmin is not here. Marlena? It's not here. Chris K is not here. Chris D?
No.
No. Matthew B?
No.
No. Roman? It's not here. Sean?
No.
No. Paige? Paige?
Sorry, I just stepped out. Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so it's just whether or not to add an "and" after the Black Lives Matter movement. So it would read, "Be resolved that the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with BLM and against police brutality and systemic racism."
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. I'm going to vote no for that one.
All right, thank you. Anais?
No.
No. James? James?
Abstain.
Abstain. Desiree? It's not here, I don't think. Hirsch? Hirsch? Okay, we'll come back. Natalia?
No.
No. And either Aryeh or Hirsch, are you there? Okay, so if not, we'll go to vote count. So that's 0 yes, 15 no, and 1 abstention. So the amendment to the amendment fails, and we'll go back to the speakers list, which is on the amendments that Shivani had written out, and they're currently in the chat. Amma, go ahead. Oh, no, sorry, Amma, you already spoke. Margot, go ahead.
Yeah,
Can I call the question?
No, because
I'm
Margot's speaking.
Hello. Yeah, there's just a really small change. When I was typing out the motion in the chat, I miswrote Indigenous peoples of Canada instead of Indigenous peoples in Canada. A very small grammatical error that's really, really important. So can I make that amendment? Or is there any?
Is there a second to the amendment?
Second. Can I make that friendly?
Yeah, seconded by Shivani. Is there any opposition to that change?
Oh, what's the change?
It's just to add, instead of it saying Indigenous peoples of Canada, to say Indigenous peoples in Canada. Is there any opposition? Okay, if there's no opposition, then it can be.
What would be the?
Margot, do you just want to explain?
Yeah, so the reasoning is that Indigenous peoples have sovereignty, like, of their own nations. So saying Indigenous peoples of Canada would imply that they're a part of Canada specifically, instead of being
amendment.
sovereign
Okay, yes.
nations
Margot,
within Canada.
All right, thank you. Okay, so there's opposition to the amendment. James, do you just want to state your opposition, then we can move to a vote?
I mean, yes, because, I mean, as explained, it's effectively, you know, kind of denying that they're part of Canada as a country from a principled point of view. and questioning the nationhood of Canada and the sovereignty of Her Majesty the Queen. So,
Great, thank you. Okay, if we could just maintain respect, please. Okay, so for the amendment to the amendment, we will move straight to a vote. Does anyone want to talk about this, or is everyone's mind made up on it? Okay, so I'll just.
Can I just, sorry, I just like, am I able to make a quick comment before we vote?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I think that, you know, the wording that Margot presented, or that change in wording, is good. And so, yeah, that's all I basically wanted to say. And like, I don't really see the relevance of the Queen and all that when it comes to this conversation. But yes, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I will go through the speakers list to vote. So if you're voting yes, it means you want to change it to in Canada. If you're voting no, it means you want to keep it to of Canada. And if you're abstaining, it means you are abstaining. Harrison, go ahead.
Sorry, this is a vote on that amendment. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
From James, I vote no.
Okay, Matthew K.
I abstain.
Abstain. Chelsea?
No.
No. Howard?
No.
No. Lauren?
Wait, if I vote no, I'm voting for of or in?
Of. No, sorry, you're voting, sorry. If you're voting, yeah, so if you're voting no, it means that you are voting, okay, sorry. Let me just write this.
If you're voting, like if you're voting yes, you're agreeing to Margot's amendment, which is to change it to
in.
There we go.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone want to change their vote after that clarification?
Yeah, I'm not sure it was super clear. Let me just go through the, sorry about that. I should have made that clear. Let me just go through the list again. Harrison, are you good with your vote?
Sorry, sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's just it wasn't super clear what the yes and the no meant. So if you're voting yes, it means that you want to keep it as it, sorry, you want to go with Margot's amendment, which is in, and if you're voting no, it means you want to keep it as is, which is of.
Oh, sorry, yes, I support Margot's amendment as is.
Okay, thank you. So that's a yes. Matthew K.
I abstain, and can I have it noted?
Yep, abstention. Chelsea?
Oh, yes, to keep it as is.
Yes, thank you. Howard?
Now that's been clarified, yes.
Yes, thank you. Lauren?
Yes to in.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yes.
Yes. Margot?
Yes.
Yes. Shivani?
Yeah.
Yes. Emma?
Yes.
Yes. Chris D?
Yes.
Yes. Matthew B?
Abstain.
Abstain. Sean?
Yes.
Yes. Paige?
Yes.
Yes. Anais?
Yes.
Yes. James?
no.
No. Hirsch? Not here. Natalia? Hirsch.
Abstain, and I'd like to abstain and have it noted. I
All
don't
right.
want to be brought up on treason or whatever against the
Done.
Queen.
And Natalia?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So that is 13 yes, 1 no, and 3 abstentions. So the amendment carries. I'll go back to the main speakers list. Shivani, go ahead.
Is it too early to call the question?
No, because we've been on the amendment for some time now.
Okay.
So if you want to do that.
Can I call the question?
Yep. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I motion to divide the question.
Is there any opposition to calling the question? Okay, so this is currently on the amendment, so I'll just reread it out. So whereas Rodney Levi of the Metapanagiag Mi'kmaq Nation was shot by a member of the RCMP on June 4th, whereas Chantal Moore of the I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Kiat First Nation in New Brunswick was shot by a member of the RCMP on June 12th. Be it resolved that the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement against police brutality and systemic racism, and be it resolved that the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with Indigenous peoples in Canada against police brutality and systemic racism. So that is the amendment, so that will be added onto the motion as it stands. So I'll go through the list. Harrison?
Yes to the amendment.
Yes. Matthew K.
Yes.
Yes. Chelsea. Chelsea. Skip. Howard.
Yes.
Yes. Lauren.
Yeah.
Yes. Sarah.
Yes.
Yes. Margot.
Yes.
Yes. Shivani.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Amma.
Yes.
Yes. Chris D.
Yes.
Yes. Matthew B.
Yes.
Yes. Sean.
Yes.
Yes. Paige.
Yes.
Yes. Anais.
Yes.
Yes. James.
Abstain.
Abstain. And Natalia.
Yes.
Yes. Was there anyone I missed? I was trying to go with the list of who was here. Aryeh, are you here? And Hirsch?
Just so you know, that wasn't just a grammatical change. You were denying Canada's sovereignty as a
Hirsch, are you there?
I,
Right,
Point
sorry.
of order.
Yes, order, please.
I think I'm here.
Okay. Sorry.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the amendments.
Do you mind reading it out if it's not going to cause any PTSD problems?
Yeah, no problem. Here, I'm just going to mute everyone because there's a lot of background noise. Just make sure I'm not still muted. Okay, so the amendment on the table is whereas Rodney Levi of the Metapaneg Yag Mi'kmaq Nation was shot by a member of the RCMP on June 4th, whereas Chantel Moore of the Chow Kiat First Nation of New Brunswick was shot by a member of the RCMP on June 12th, be it resolved that the annual campaign of the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement against police brutality and systemic racism, and be it resolved that the annual campaign be one that is in solidarity with Indigenous peoples in Canada against police brutality and systemic racism. And that's the amendment to add that to the motion. So I just need your vote, Hirsch.
Cool, I'll take a yes.
All right, so that carries. So the vote count is 15 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention. So now we're back on the main motion as amended. Harrison, go ahead.
Sorry, I rescind.
All right.
Point of information.
Yes.
Is the part about budgetary impact still being nil still there? I did.
Yeah, this is just an amendment to add those to the motion. So they would be one further whereas, and then 2 more be it resolves. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yep.
Perfect. Shivani.
Okay, I think it's too early to call the question, so just let that be the one speaker thing, or unless I can call the question.
I'll just let the next few go before I entertain the call to question. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, just yeah, no. The thing about this amendment is against the sovereignty of Canada is kind of illogical. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I? I'm so sorry. Can I just say something quickly? I just wanted to say, yeah, I think that the motion that Shivani and Margot, presented, the amendment, it really acknowledges that due to the fact that certain Indigenous nations are in fact actually not considered a part of Canada. I mean, I don't really want to go into that discussion, but I would just like that to be known as well, as they are nations. So yes, so I think that, but the amended motion is perfect the way it is.
Right, thank you. Lauren?
I want to call the question.
Okay, I feel like we have discussed this in general for a while. Is there a second to calling the question?
Second.
Second by Shivani. Is there any opposition to calling the question?
Sorry, one really quick thing.
Can
sorry.
I motion to divide the question?
Sorry, really quick. There's an error in the whereas. Chantel Moore was from it says New Brunswick, which is where she moved, but the nation she's a part of is located in what's now British Columbia, what's called British Columbia.
Okay, I feel like that's a fairly non-contentious amendment. Is there a second to adding that? To just
sorry, but she was killed in New Brunswick. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, but it says oh, okay. Sorry, I was confused. I was confused by the
First
wording.
Nation is from New Brunswick.
This nation in New Brunswick. Okay, cool.
Are we all good with New Brunswick?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so is there opposition to calling the question? Okay, so if not, we will vote on the motion as a whole. So let me just find the final version to then read it out for you. Sorry, it's just taking a second to open. Okay, so the motion as a whole, actually, let me just add this in, and then I will be able to share the screen to make life easier. You'll all give me 2 seconds. Oh wow, sorry, there's a lot of text here that I'm trying to put into one document. Sorry about that, just give me 2 seconds.
Are we on recess? Did I miss something?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, it's just me. I'm trying to just get all the motion with the amendments together so that I can share my screen and then everybody can see what we're voting on.
No worries. I just wasn't sure if I missed something, and I just.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm just being slow. Okay, there we go. Okay, I have everything finally all good. And I will share my screen. There we go. Okay, so this is the motion as a whole. The amendments are in red. Oops, I accidentally made this one show up twice. There we go. Is everyone okay with the motion on the table? I'll just give everyone a second to take a read. And this should probably go at the end. There we go.
Just a super short, this shouldn't be non-contentious at all, but can we just shift in New Brunswick to after the bit about first of all, the thing about Chantal Moore, I think that should be a separate clause.
Oh, it is.
But also, can we shift the phrase in New Brunswick to after RCMP, just to make it clear?
Can do. Is there a second to just putting it at the end so it looks like this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, seconded. I think that was Lauren. Is there any opposition to just putting in New Brunswick at the end so it's clear where the event occurred? There's no opposition. It will
Please be quiet.
Perfect.
Put it also after June 4th to make it the.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Put in New Brunswick also.
Oh.
And the Ronnie Levi, if you want to add it where the location is.
Is that is everyone amenable to that? Just so it's clear where that took place. Let me just make sure there's nothing. Is everyone good if I stop screen sharing? Okay, so if there's no opposition, then we are all good with having read and digested the motion. So I will go through the list for the final vote. Harrison.
100% yes. Noted, please.
Thank you. Matthew. K.
1000% yes, and I'd like to have that noted, please.
Thank you. Chelsea. Chelsea. Not here. Howard.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Lauren.
Yes, and noted, please.
Thank you. Arya. Arya, I saw you come back in, but I don't know if we just can't hear you. Oh, perfect. How do you vote?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Sarah.
Yes.
Thank you. Margot.
Yep.
Thank you. Shivani.
Yes.
Thank you. Amma.
Yes.
Thank you. Chris D.
Yes, and noted, please.
Thank you. Matthew B.
Yes.
Thank you. Sean.
Yes, and noted, please.
Thank you. Paige.
Yes.
Thank you. Anais.
Yes.
Thank you. James. James. Come back to you. Hirsch.
Can we get back to me in a minute?
Sure. Natalia.
Yes.
Yes. And James or Hirsch.
I'd like to. This is just the amendment, right?
No, it's the motion as a whole.
Oh, okay. Yes.
All right. Thank you. And James, I don't know if you're still there. Okay. So in that case, oh, sorry.
I'd like to vote yes also.
Oh, who is that? Oh, Chelsea. There you go. Yeah, I missed you before. All right. So if there is nobody else coming in, the final tally is 17 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstentions. So that carries. If there is nothing further on this point, Victoria, did you want to have the minutes approved today or move to do it, or did you want to do it at a later date to make amendments?
We could approve. Honestly, no, we'll just approve both of them at the next meeting because I didn't go over, I didn't send it to sponsorship to go over either. So I want both committees, sorry, I can't even speak. I want both committees to just go over the minutes first to make sure I didn't screw anything up and misquote anyone. So we'll just pass them at the next meeting instead, if that's okay with everyone.
All right, not a problem. So with that, if there's nothing further on this point, we are at the future June special council meeting point, and Isaiah, this one's yours.
Okay, so now that at the last meeting, we weren't able to get through everything on the agenda. So it was motion that I call an SCM sometime in June in order to kind of like do everything later, right? But like this was kind of like a high priority. We needed to get the annual campaign done. And I knew, as we see, we have a lot of absences and whatnot. So I wasn't sure. I just wanted to get the feel for, because next week is Saint Jean de Baptiste, which falls on a Wednesday, and the week after is Canada Day. So I was trying to feel out if we would want me to just amend, and July is normally not, and council meetings is the second month, or would people want me to kind of like call it on a Tuesday, amend it to call it on a Tuesday or a Thursday within the month of June? So I'm like, I'm just gonna, or I can go and poll, like we don't have to discuss it full out here. I can make a poll, but the thing is I just need to know if I can amend the motion to kind of like, because there's either we amend the month or we amend the day, and then I send a poll to call it at a future date.
Do you have a motion or anything?
So I guess the first one, motion to amend the resolution taken last.
If I can maybe formulate, maybe like whereas on the June 11th.
Whereas on the June 10th, the June 10th council meeting, the general coordinator was mandated to call an SCM in the month of June on a Wednesday at 6:30, whereas the next 2 Wednesdays of June technically are holidays. And then it's like, be it resolved that we amend either that resolution by the day, so allowing me to call it on another day of the week, or amend it that I can call it on a Wednesday in July. So I just want to gauge, like, from the council to see which one do you want? Do you guys want another meeting this month so that we can honor it and deal with everything on the agenda? Or would you rather me wait till a Wednesday where typically we're going to be available and call it in July?
Oh, I understand. Yes?
I want to bring things forward to an SCM relatively soon, so maybe we could stick to the month of June and we could work around the Tuesday or Thursday schedule.
Okay, that's all right. James, go ahead. We'll just take a couple of speakers to see what the feel of the room is. Or James, did you have your hand up? No. Harrison, go ahead.
Thank you. Personally, I think it's best to postpone it to July 8th, I guess that would be. But I am not opposed to having a vote. I think that might be the best way to go in this particular circumstance, so that we can see how the room feels about it. Maybe like a when to meet or a survey or something like that.
All right, Eduardo?
Yeah, just if I'm not mistaken, Finance Committee already mandated us to have a special one in July. So I think there's already one scheduled for there if we don't want to call like another one in between somewhere.
Thank you. Lauren?
There was just a lot of stuff that we didn't get to in the last council meeting. And if we're adding stuff to that agenda, like, I honestly think we probably need 2 SCMs in the month of June. So I'm open to the Tuesday and the Thursday meetings.
Right. There's no one on the speakers list. Isaiah, is there one you would suggest and we can vote on it? Try to formulate this motion.
Yeah, because I'm against putting it on the one in the 15th, which will be the week after for the budget, so that, because that might be an extensive discussion. But I'm honestly open to either the 8th or having it sometime on a Tuesday or a Thursday. So I guess what I'll do is I'm going to motion to allow the general coordinator to survey the council to see which day is most appropriate. Either a Tuesday, just a day. I'll either put it for July 8th, which is the earliest Wednesday that we can meet, and then I'll kind of do a survey of options of the Tuesday and Thursday to see which one's most appropriate for everybody.
So I'm just trying to draft this with wording. So your suggestion would be to have council mandate you to have a poll of when the best time would be?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll set when I post the poll, I'll set a deadline. And if you don't answer by the deadline, then I'm calling the meeting based off the most popular vote.
Does the motion in the chat make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just pretend that you said that, Isaiah. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
I second.
Second. I didn't hear the first second.
Oh, me.
Who's me?
Chris.
Chris.
Chris, thank you. Okay, is there, okay, I'll open discussions. There's a hand up, Shivani?
Oh, no, I rescind. I was gonna.
Alrighty. Is there any opposition to this motion? Okay, so that carries unanimously. Isaiah will do a poll to find a suitable alternative date. So that being said, there's nothing further on the agenda. So if there is nothing further,
is there still announcements in the SCM section?
No, there's no announcements for a special, but is it something? Right?
Yes, it's just something quick in the sense of, I believe last time I checked, I have 14 people who have filled out the form to get their counselor emails. And so I believe mathematically there's 28 of you. And so I really would appreciate, and I'm sure the executives would appreciate, if you fill out the form and call and follow the instructions to get your counselor email, so that we can kind of get the work off of Facebook and start using the systems implemented.
Thank you. Hirsch, go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do we have a second? Isaiah,
Second.
any opposition?
No.
Perfect. So meeting adjourned, folks. Take care.
Good night.
Good night. And I'll post
Have a
the
good night,
link
everyone.
to the recording after the meeting.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, guys.
All right.